Good afternoon, everybody. I am going to be teaching the team building and mentoring portion of this workshop. And we're going to start with the team building portion, and then I'm going to go into the mentoring. So a lot of us, I think, when we get our jobs, we're inheriting a staff. We're not getting to pick a staff from scratch, because then that would be very ideal, and we'd be able to pick everybody we wanted with the right characteristics and the right enthusiasm. So you're going to be going into a department, whether you're a leader or just working as part of a team, and you're going to have all different personalities. So when I first became a manager in a library, I inherited a staff of 10, and everybody was completely different. We had people who were very pessimistic. We had people who wanted it the way it was. We had people with really great creative ideas. So really where you have to start is knowing where you are in your library, what your organization's mission is, what their overall goal is, and then getting your team to buy into that mission. And taking those values and those missions and assigning your team based on their strengths. So you really need to know your team players. The first thing that's really important is sitting individually with each person and finding out about what they do, what their job duties are, what they like, what they don't like. If they could have anything they wanted in their job, what type of projects would they want to work on? What would they want to create that would go along with the library's mission? I came into a department where they didn't have a lot of that creativity. They had it, but they weren't able to do anything with it. They had a different type of a leader than what I am. And that was a very hard change. And knowing when you come into a department that you're bringing something new. So I identified all the needs of the department first. I made notes on what people were passionate about, what they weren't passionate about, where their strengths are, and where they felt that they could do a little bit better in. Let them be honest with you, and you need to be honest with them. And then it's reshaping that team. Maybe the person who was working on one project, that wasn't what they really wanted to do, but they really wanted to work on something else. So what I did with team building, I know a lot of you, based on your answers to the questions that I had asked, you wanted to know about activities. And, you know, can you do escape rooms and get people to work together? And can you do icebreaker games? Sure, you can do that. But I don't think anybody really cares about it. I know that I was one of those people that I would shy away from those things. I wanted no part of doing those types of things. I just wanted to be creative and work with other people. So you're going to have your personalities that are not going to want to have anything to do with those types of activities. So what I'm going to tell you about is how we do team building a different way here where I am. And it really does work. And those people that you really want to buy in by doing team breaker activities, those are the people that usually don't realize they're the problem. And you're going to go through all that effort to do these team building things because you're hoping they're going to be a part of your team. And at the end of the day, they're still going to complain about the fact that, oh, we had to spend a whole day doing this. So really what you want to do is those pessimistic people, those people that, oh, we did it this way before, you want to find their strengths. And you want to work around the weaknesses of it. And you want to find ways to highlight their strengths. That's going to make them part of your team. So that's a lot of reshaping, and it takes a lot of effort. There are 4 different elements that really put together your team. You have your team composition. You've got the people that you inherit that are really enthusiastic, and they have so many ideas, and they want to do so many things. And then you have your people who just want to do things in their own way. You have to make them accountable for being a part of that team. We did a lot of meetings. We did a lot of brainstorming sessions. I moved people around. And moving them around is, you know, great for the people who are getting exactly what they want. And then you have your people that are kind of in the middle, and they're not really sure where they want to go or what they want to do. I was assigning them to things. You can always change it. You can always change what you have them doing 6 months down the road, and that's okay. Until you find something that works. For those people that are just not pulling their weight, I had to be very hard on their accountability. And if they're late and they stroll in half an hour late, I was documenting everything. If they're the ones that didn't have their program prepared or they didn't have their ideas ready for a meeting, I had to call them out on those things. And I had to document. I know with Jennifer's workshop, she talked a lot of the performance evaluation of it. It's a lot of documenting to get your team where you want them to be. And the people that are not happy, I will say over 4 years of being in the position I am in now, I have changed 60% of the team. Whether those people moved on to other positions, whether they moved on to other organizations, whether they just moved out of my department. And I had to be okay with that. And you can't beat yourself up over it either. I would do everything in my power to make sure that they felt included. And I would give them opportunities. Hey, there's job openings here. There's job openings there. If you're not happy, these are some things that might fit for you. And it's okay to do that. And I would beat myself up about it sometimes. But being a strong leader is sometimes making a decision that's best for the other person. So with that, we have now come to a really good place. I have changed out 3 out of 4 support staff people. Just so you guys have a background, some of you I'm sure are from small libraries, some of you are from larger libraries. I run a teen department of 15 people. It's probably the size of a small library, so you've got a lot of personalities on that team. And the best thing to do is make sure we're all aligning with the overall mission, and that is where I am. You got to love working with youth. You have to love being able to interact with parents. That's a very big part of what builds our team, and because that's what we're passionate about. So taking that and how can we keep our community engaged? How can we keep our community inspired? How can we educate them to keep coming back to our building? We had to align with that mission. What do we want to accomplish? What do we want to do with the materials and the resources that we have to meet that mission together as a team? And everything is partnered. Everything that we do, it's shared with somebody else. It's not just I, it's a we. And there's always a backup for every project that we work on. So there's always 2 people working on it. So if somebody falls behind on something, somebody else can pull up and, pull up and say, oh, I got this today. We work very well with that. And that is full-timers and part-timers. Our part-timers are treated very much as if they were a mini full-timer. They are not a body on a desk. They are designing programs. They are sitting on committees for library-wide events. If they have the hours and they're passionate about, hey, I'm really into Halloween and we do a haunted garden here, work on that team. We will find hours for you to be able to work on that team. I'm really strong in technology. That's really what I like to do. That's what I'm going to put that person on. They're going to design the technology programs. They're going to sit on our makerspace committee. And they're going to do well with that because that's what they're strong at. And that engagement creates a feeling of self-worth. It creates a team. They're doing something they're passionate about. They're happy. It's not about the activities and trying to make them meld. And I will tell you, you got to match your personalities too. You have to know the character traits and the personalities on your team and know that mixing one person with another person is not going to work. You have to know that, okay, this person is very high maintenance or very high drama. Okay, who are they going to work the best with on the team? Is it the person that's like very laid back and can handle that? You don't want to put 2 high-strung people together. You don't want to put 2 people who are both the same way because nothing's going to get done. You have to have your ideas person and your organizational person. You have to have, your strong speaker, and maybe somebody doesn't really like public speaking. Put the person who's great with public speaking with the person who's the great organizer, because sometimes the organizer doesn't want to speak, but they'll help organize the person who does want to speak. So you really have to balance your different traits. Your operating model is, how many people do I have to work with? How many meetings do I really need to have to make this team effective? And the word meeting, if you have too many meetings, everybody's rolling their eyes about meetings. We do ours as brainstorming sessions. And we regroup. We call it regrouping. And we have a strategic plan library-wide, departmental-wide. Where are we going over the next 3 years? Okay. For example, last year we focused on, okay, we have this great makerspace. Half of us are not technology-based. Everybody's in a panic. So we did trainings, library-wide, everyone's welcome, library-wide staff trainings. And the people that are not technology-based, they're going to balk. They're going to be like, I don't want to do this. My answer to that was, everybody can learn the basics. Just enough that when you're on that reference desk or that service desk or you're at that circulation desk, somebody asks a question, you have a basic answer. We don't expect you to be an expert. If that's not your thing, that's okay. But we expect you to have a basic answer. And by attending these trainings and these workshops that we are working on together, and we're encouraging you to ask the questions that make you nervous. We did trainings on every single piece of equipment that we had, down to using a camera. Everybody needed to be comfortable with basics on everything. And that worked. It made everybody a lot more comfortable. And then if you're working with another staff member and you're nervous about it, and the other staff member goes, oh, I remember that from the training. Hey, this is how we're going to answer this question. And I was watching people work together on how to answer the questions and how to use the green screen and how to work this. And it was, you were just watching them become a team just because they had that confidence level. Just that little bit of 45 minutes of here's what you do if somebody asks a question. This year, our focus is Reader's Advisory. We're all strong in different areas. We all read different things. We're bringing it back to the books. So somebody's really strong in graphic novels. We have a lot of students that are great with that. Not all the staff is comfortable with graphic novels. So we've been doing Google slideshows and different talking points, and each month we're focusing on a different genre so everybody is comfortable answering questions for any parent that comes in or any child that comes in. And we're all working together. And we all call each other in going, I got this question last night. I didn't know how to answer that. Did I answer it the right way? You answered it fine. Here's what we could do next time. Not here's what I want you to do. Here's what we can do next time. That's our strategic planning meetings. Then we do operationals. I don't do meetings every month. I do meetings when we need meetings. We do committee meetings on library-wide things. Everybody in the building takes a part in that. It's not, I'm just teen, I'm just adults, I'm just circulation. Everybody works together on a team. We have at least 1 to 2 people from every department working on our marketing team, working on our website team, working on our studio team, which is our makerspace. There are people from every department, and it's based on interest level. We sent it out to our team in teen. Hey, who would be really interested in working on website design? Who would be really interested in working on makerspace? I need at least 1 person on every team. 2 if you want, 3 if you want. I'll send anybody who wants to go. So we have different people, and they bring back to us on our operational meetings, and they talk about it. I've got part-timers on some of these teams, and they come back and they run a meeting and tell us what's going on those committees. It makes everybody feel like they're a worthy part of the team. We do learning meetings, like I talked about. We do meetings when we need procedures. I'm not sure how all of you are with your different stuff. We have a very large teen population here. We have 83,000 in the community. We serve 8,300 students, grades 6 through 12. So that's a lot of kids. When you have a teen program on a Friday night and it's teen night, you're seeing 120 kids with 3 librarians to run 120 students. Sometimes those procedures have to be adjusted and tweaked, and how are we going to run this? That is an entire library meeting. We have started with our team and what we need on our team to be successful downstairs on our level. But what do we also need from the rest of the library as a team to make this work? So it has been from the management down, management meetings, this is what we're dealing with. Overall, how is the building going to handle that problem of 120 teenagers running around on a Friday night? Because they're everywhere. And not everybody is wonderful with youth. Not everybody wants to approach and talk to a teenager. We've had to do trainings for everyone. How do you speak to a teenage student? How do you get them to respect your authority without coming off abrasive and aggressive And that has been a learning model for everyone in the building, even the people who do not like working with teenagers. So we do a lot of brainstorm meetings. They're not, this is what you're going to do and this is going to how you're going to do it. It's not a dictatorship. It's everybody contributing ideas and then figuring out which ideas are the best and which ones we're going to go with. And if those ideas don't work, okay, well, Sue had an idea last month and it was a really good idea, but we went with this other idea instead. You know what? That idea didn't work. Let's see and try Sue's idea. Let's see if that works better. And also explaining to a team member when you don't pick their idea. We don't want them to be discouraged because some people, once they give one idea and it's not taken, they never want to give an idea again. You didn't understand them. You don't appreciate them. I've had people on my teams that are very not okay with that. If you don't do everything they say every time, and I'm sure all of you have had those people on your teams, if you don't do everything they want when they want, it's an emotional fit. You have to learn how to deal with those emotional fits. It's a lot of emotional intelligence. It is a lot of, okay, this is how we're going to do it today. I appreciate that you had an opinion. It doesn't mean that I don't value your opinion, but this is a decision we're going to go with right now. It's for the best decision for the library as a whole. And while I appreciate you had an idea, next time maybe your idea will work for us. And I've had people who I've had to write up. I have had people who haven't talked to me for 6 months after I told them something that they didn't want to hear. You have to be strong enough not to engage with that and just work around it. I've had several employees in different jobs, not the one I'm in now. You have to learn how to work around the personalities. We're at a point now with certain people that we have a conversation, they might be upset for a day, and they come back and they're okay. But it's no more 6 months of silent treatment, because yes, I have been there. You want to integrate everything that everybody says. Now I'm up to the integration point. Integrate everything that everybody says and take all ideas into consideration. It's a lot of listening. And sometimes the ideas might be outlandish. Sometimes you're like, where is this person coming from? They don't even understand the object of anything we're talking about right now, but you still have to listen. And then what I do is I don't make snap decisions. Sometimes I'll go home overnight and I'll think about it. Sometimes some things that people say can make you emotional. As a leader, you can't show your emotions. You have to be calm all the time. You can be shaking on the inside. You could be angry on the inside. You can be going, are you kidding me right now, when somebody says something to you? And you're just like, I'm going to walk away. I'm going to think about what they said. I'm going to think about why they said it. And then you're going to come back with an answer. And that is the best way to try to keep your team in line, and also call them on things. Make them accountable. And when you make a mistake, you have to make yourself accountable as well. Nobody's perfect. Everybody's human. I'm the first one to say to my staff, hey, I screwed up. That wasn't the right decision to make this time. Next time, I'm going to try to make a better decision. We're going to go with somebody else's decision the next time. Apologize if you say something wrong. It's okay to apologize. Be careful that you're not showing too much weakness, because it's just like working with teenagers. Once they see that you're weak, they will push those boundaries. So keeping your emotions in check, using your words. My staff has said to me, I was a little nervous about doing this whole webinar, and they said to me, but you're so great with words. You do that with us every day. Doing that every day and teaching 26 people on a webinar is two different things. But the other thing is trust. Your staff has to trust you. You have to encourage and support each other. Sometimes we'll be working on stuff and it's a complete failure. You have to let them know that it's okay that it failed. If they tried really hard and they executed it and they organized it and they did a lot of work on it, it's okay to say, it's okay that it didn't work out. Maybe that's just something that we thought the community really wanted and they didn't. Let's go back and think about what didn't work. What could we do differently next time? Will there be a next time? And how do you want to frame it differently? And you want to ask them that question. How do you think that program turned out? Did it meet your expectations? Did it not meet your expectations? And don't just tell me what you think I want to hear, and I'll tell them that. Don't just tell me what you think I want to hear. because it's okay if it didn't work out the right way, but I want to know the truth of how this worked out and what would you do differently next time. And then it's me listening to them and then giving some suggestions. It's not telling them what to do, it's giving constructive criticism, and it's a lot of communication. Now, with my staff, I stay after 5 o'clock every day to meet with my part-timers, to make sure I have a connection with them, to ask them where they're at with different things, to ask them if they have any ideas about things, to ask them if they're encountering anything that has happened in the evenings that I don't know about, things that could be made better in the department. What are they seeing? What are they seeing when they're out on the floor, out on the desk? What are they seeing from patrons? What are people asking for? Those are different things that I'm communicating with the staff all the time. And when they share that, they're sharing it with our whole department. Sometimes someone's got a great idea. I'll shout it out to the whole department, to the team. I'll say, hey, can I share this with everyone? It's a really great idea. It's also giving clear expectations and directives to your staff. When you're building different initiatives and different things, you have to be very clear about, this is a great idea. How are you fleshing it out? How is it going to be organized? Are we bringing in outside people to help us with this? Are we partnering with another department? When you're building those things, you have to have a list of questions ready to ask them, because if they just have an idea and you say, hey, run with it, do they even know how to organize it? Do they even know what they're doing with it? You have to have clear guidelines. And always checking up with your staff, with the communication. Hey, we're working on this project for 2 months from now. Where are we at? Do you have the vendors lined up? Do we get applicants for the art show? Do we reach out to the teachers? Where are you at on this? Where are we at on this? Have we reached out to the Chamber of Commerce for this project? There's a deadline for, room setups. Have we communicated with the custodial staff that this is what we need? Every step of the way, you should be checking in with your staff on deadlines, directives, procedures, their work behavior. Having those things in hand, you have to be very organized. And that will help you build your team. Addressing things right when they happen. People are capable of lots of things. You have a lot of diversity in your department. Put their strengths to work. Make sure your team is flexible, and make sure that you are flexible. As far as adaptability, people always want, I want what I want when I want. And for me, I always say we will make it work together, but you also have to make it work for me. So the staff should be flexible. Most of my staff is very flexible with their hours, and in return, I will be flexible with them. If I do a favor for them, I need them to do a favor for me in exchange. We've got that worked out pretty good. Somebody needs to leave and take care of this, we'll move their hours. And it's like, okay, well, if I move your hours, can you do this for me? I need something, 3 weeks from now. If I help you, I need you to help me. And it's a lot of give and take. And it's also, your staff wants to be appreciated. Always say thank you. Always, commend them for successes. Always encourage them if something fails and saying we can do better next time. But also address the things that are wrong. I don't let anything slide with certain things. If people are not respecting each other as coworkers, we sit down and we talk about it. We call it out. Sometimes it's he said, she said, and you got to sit for a couple weeks and start observing and see, is that really happening? Because they're not going to do it when you're around. If you're the one in charge, they're going to make sure it's not happening when you're around. But you got to keep a watch and be observant, and then you have to handle it within the first week or two that it happens. Because if you let it slide, that doesn't build the morale for your team. I have had people who have, put their hands up in other staff's face. No, you're not going to do that. And address them like that on the public floor in front of patrons and in front of kids. That is not okay. That person's getting called in to talk about it, and it's not going to be okay. And we're going to discuss it. We're going to ask why. And you're going to listen to that staff member because they're going to throw the other staff member under the bus. That's what happens. And you're just going to have to think about the words that you use and say, you may have been upset in that instance, but you have to be a professional on the floor. And then you have to give them constructive criticism on how to handle that. The next time that happens, I want you to walk away and think and be aware of, it's a self-awareness. It's being aware of how you're acting in front of your coworkers and the public. And you need to keep that in check. And I'll say it, you need to keep that in check. and we're going to work on that. We're going to come back to it in 2 months, and we're going to discuss how you're doing. If you need strategies for that, I'll be happy to sit down and talk to you about things that you can do so that you don't feel overwhelmed or you don't feel like you're frazzled, because these behaviors cannot continue. And some people can take that very well, and some people, it is an ongoing training, counseling, coaching. It's like cyclical. Every 3 or 4 months, you're going to be having that conversation again. And sometimes it changes for a good 6 months, and then we're right back in it, and you have to start all over. And that is the nature of the job. Creative freedom, make sure your team gets to be creative. If they're getting to be creative and do the things they love, your team's going to work so much better together. And listening. Please, please, please listen. Even when you don't want to listen, sometimes they might have one spark of a great idea and everything else is nonsense. Take that spark and see what you can do with it. Don't just count them out of the game. Think about one thing that they're doing that you can build on for them to give them something that they can own. And listen when they're having issues, and listen, if there's negative attitudes, and listen. You have to be the harmonizing influence. You have to be the one that's going to set the example. You have to be the one that's the role model. And if you're modeling all of that behavior, eventually people are going to catch on and start doing that behavior as well. If you're instilling respect for each other and communication and creativity and supporting each other in every project we do, and going out to other departments and saying, hey, Sam had this great idea. It's really an awesome idea, but we need people from other departments to work on it with us. Or we had a success on something. I'm not going to go upstairs and say, hey, I did this. I'm going to say, Sam had this great idea. We did this whole event. He worked so hard on it, and it was such a success, and we'd like to see him do it again if anybody wants to work with him the next time. Give your staff credit for what they do. Give your staff credit for their ideas, library-wide, organization-wide. Like I said before, always say thank you. I buy lunch for my staff quarterly to thank them for all the work and the hard work that they do. It's just something that's saying I appreciate all the hard work that they put in every day. Now for the mentoring piece. I know some of you have said to me both ways. You want to know how to be a mentee and how to be a mentor. So I'm going to approach it from both directions. As a mentee, how do you get the most out of a mentor relationship? Basically, you want to find someone that has some experience in the field. You want to find someone who is enthusiastic about what they do. Enthusiasm is key. Someone who is continually growing themselves, that they are driven. You want to be able to ask them questions. And what I mean by ask questions is not, so-and-so said something to me today and I didn't like it and I don't know how to handle it. Although you may have that question. But I'm talking the hard questions. I'm dealing with a challenging issue downstairs. I don't know how to handle this personality. I have tried this solution, that solution. Can you give me some guidance on what to do next? Because the two things I've tried aren't working. Do the things that scare you. Talk through your challenges. For me, my challenge was, a little bit of self-awareness, a little bit of emotional intelligence, and not getting too emotional when I've got somebody up in my face, screaming at me that they don't like what I did. No matter what decision you make, I tell my staff, I wouldn't be a good boss if I didn't make some decisions that were unpopular. Because if I said yes to everything somebody asked me, I'd have a free-for-all. So sometimes I have to say no, and sometimes I have to do things that are fair. If someone's asking you if they can do something, you want to think about, before you say yes, you want to think about, if I say yes to this, what are the ramifications for the rest of the team? And if I let this one do this, that means I got to let 10 other people do this. And is that going to make my department work well? Or is that going to make the library work well? Am I setting an example? Am I setting a precedent that's going to become a problem later? Those are things that, those were struggles that I had that I was able to talk to a mentor about and say, okay, I need to be fair about this. How do I be fair? How do I not take that emotion to heart? So you need to be honest with your mentor. Don't sugarcoat it. If you're having a problem, you need to address it. If you're getting emotional, how can I learn to be not as emotional about things? Give yourself and your mentor mutual respect. You know, if you're asking them for advice and you want them to guide you, sometimes what they're going to say may not be what you want to hear. Set goals. Find someone, if you want to advance in your career, find someone that's going to help you do that. And make sure you're sharing. Sharing advice both ways. I've been very lucky to have some mentors in my life. I have multiple mentors, and it just depends on a situation who I can go to and ask those questions to. But sometimes you're sharing advice. Sometimes you as the mentee is reaching out to your mentor, talking about something, and then the next time they're calling you to ask you, have you ever dealt with this? Have you ever dealt with this situation? And you're sharing things back and forth because maybe each of you have different experiences. Things that you would ask of a mentor, and I had some, questions that I thought might be helpful. A mentor is not going to tell you how to do things. They're going to give you suggestions. So, think about, you want to ask them about their experiences. You want to ask them about situational questions. You want to ask them about their self-awareness, their skill building. You want to ask, self-awareness. Have you ever been in a challenging situation? What did you do? Skill building. I feel that I'm strong in this part of my life, in this profession. What do you think that I could be stronger on? What can I work on? Situational questions. I really want to move up. I really want to be a leader. I've been doing job interviews. I'm not getting interviews, or I'm getting an interview, but I'm not getting to the second interview. What could I be doing better? Could you help me with that? Am I saying the wrong things at certain times? Can you help me, give me some suggestions on how I can phrase my words better? They're not going to tell you exactly how to do. You're not going to go in there and say, hey, somebody talked back to me today. What words do I have to use to tell them? They're not going to tell you that. That's not what a mentor is for. That's a coach. That's a supervisor that's just going to give you, here's the answer. Your mentor is going to make you think outside the box. Your mentor is going to say, you know what, you're really strong in this. I think you can do this. Your mentor is going to encourage you. Your mentor is going to say, hey, there's some workshops going on locally or statewide. Maybe you should go to this conference. Maybe you should go to this workshop. These skills might be good for you to learn. They're going to tell you about different professional development that you can work on or go to. They're going to do things that are going to build you up as a person, but they're also going to make you aware of the things that you're weak in. And you have to go home and take what they're saying and really think about it. So your mentor's role, they're creating a long-term growth and development. It's long-term. It's what's going to be good for you next year, 2 years, 3 years down the road. They're going to challenge you to think differently than you already do, and you have to be open-minded to that. You can't go in and ask a mentor a question and not like their answer and then, oh, well, they're no good for me. You have to actually take what they're saying and analyze yourself. They're going to tell you to think about things differently. They're going to give you a different perspective on things that maybe you never thought to look at things that way. They're also going to offer you encouragement. Hey, this is, a really good opportunity for you. You should try this. I'm very fortunate to have an administration that is very mentoring. I have gone on interviews and they've said, hey, do you need us to mock interview with you? We're not kicking you out the door, but we know you want more for yourself. What can we do to be a support for you? They've done mock interviews with me. They've taught me how to interview better. I used to be able, if I was nervous, I would ramble and I would get throwing my hands all over and playing with my hair and just all of these things that I never thought about that made me look truly nervous and like I really maybe didn't know what I was doing. And those are things that I've had to work on, calming body language. I've had to work on slowing my voice down. I tend to talk really, really fast when I'm nervous, and I've had to learn how to moderate that. And these are things I never thought of for myself that my mentor said to me, hey, these are some things you can work on for yourself. So you got to look internally and think about how you're reacting to things, how you're presenting yourself. What words are you using? What emotion are you exhibiting? And a mentor is going to help you work with those things. So they're going to listen. They're going to be great listeners. Listening is a hard thing to do, like I've mentioned before. Listening takes a lot of skill and a lot of patience. Even when you have a staff member who comes to you and wants to talk about everything that happened in their day. I have one of those. Who wants to talk about everything that has nothing to do with work. And sometimes you have to know that, okay, if I give this person 5 minutes, they're going to be so much more productive because they needed 5 minutes for someone to listen. A mentor is going to inspire and motivate you. They're going to encourage you to be more. They're going to offer openness and engagement. You know, what else could you be doing outside of the things that you already do? They're going to give you the honesty you may not want to hear. And it's going to help you establish respect and teach you how to be respectful of other people and their time. And know that they might tell you, hey, you're not a great fit. I've had mentors that have said, you know, the environment that you're in, you're so strong in certain things. Maybe that's not the environment for you. Maybe you need to think about, you know, moving your environment. And I thought about it. And it really helped, and it got me to where I am now. And I love what I do now. And now I want to take that mentoring and give it back to other people because I've learned so much from listening to other people help me be a better person. The questions that you want to ask them is, you know, things like, what does success look like? You know, what outcome do you want from a situation? A mentor may ask you, hey, you're coming in here and asking me about a situational question. What kind of outcome do you want? What do you want the answer to be? You know, do you want that person to be better at written communication? Do you want the department you're partnering with on another event that's not working so well? Do you want to come up with an execution plan? Are you looking to come up with defined procedures for, you know, this next project that we're doing because nobody really knows what they're doing? You know, you're going to ask those types of questions. You know, the mentor is going to ask you things like, you know, where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want the organization to be in 3 years? What obstacles or challenges are you facing that you're looking for some suggestions and some growth in? Think about the things you can control. You know, focus on what can change in the situation rather than dwelling on the endless problems of what's going wrong. You know, people tend to dwell on the negative. What you have to change your mindset to is, what can we change to make it more positive? Okay, there's always going to be problems, and there's going to be endless problems. What kind of short-term solutions can you come up with to make the situation better? Those are the types of questions a mentor is going to ask you. You know, what options do you have? If you're going to ask a question to a mentor, don't waste their time. Know what the problem is. Have some possible solutions that you think might work. If you're not sure of them, that's what you're going to talk to your mentor about. But have a possible solution already lined up that you can discuss. And they may turn it into something different, or they may say, that's a great start. Here's what you want to think about next. Also, get to know your mentor. And it's a shared thing back and forth between mentor and mentee. You know, learn about personal likes, as well as, you know, 90% of that's going to be professional mentoring, but you should know a little bit personal about the person too. What kind of music they like, what kind of books do they enjoy reading? You know, what are their hobbies? It really kind of, if you know a little bit about that person, it kind of tells you a little bit outside of work what type of person they could be or want to be. And that might give you, if you're the mentor, it gives you a spark on, you know, maybe I can reach them based on a personal interest. And maybe if you know something about a mentor, you may understand where they're coming from more. And then to sum it up, these are the different things that you're really building with a mentor. You're establishing trust. You're building a relationship that's going to help you grow and become a better leader, a better manager, whatever your goal is. You're going to establish ground rules. Where do you want to go? Have that conversation. Have a set thing in mind. You don't want to just ramble for an hour and never get anywhere with that mentoring session. You want to have goals. You want to have SMART goals. You want to ask about feedback, and you want that feedback to be honest. And then take it home and think it over and think about what you can do, and think about it objectively. Don't take it personal because they're doing it to help you. maintain accountability, and be thankful. And I put this book up because I know some of the other presenters have mentioned this book in their webinars. One of my mentors gave this book to me, and I've used it. I've also used a couple other books from the Harvard Business Review that have been very helpful on emotional intelligence. And I highly recommend looking through this book. It really has some great key points that can really help you in leadership. Even if you're just being a page supervisor, or you're supervising one clerk, or you're a person of one and you have to be yourself and everybody else, I find that some of the things in this book would be a really good help for you. And I thank you for your attention today.
All right, now we're going to hand it over to Joyce.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So I am talking more about how to boost your career and your leadership role. So, oh, it's not moving here. First, you've got the job. So now what? Well, at work, even if you're in a small library and you are the department, you have to learn your job and who helps get things done. The custodians, reward them with thanks and food. They clean up a lot of messes, including the ones that young children make, from crayons and maybe paint spilled on rugs to getting your rooms ready, moving tables and chairs around. Let them know how much you appreciate that. There's extra work for the circ staff on program days. Think about SRP openings. Bring food for the staff room with grateful thanks and a note to the whole staff that you know they're going to be stressed a little bit. Just wanted them to know that you appreciate what they're doing. If you get funds for a program, it may even just be in the budget, but after the summer reading program, or if someone from the Board of Trustees has allowed you to get a big name entertainer, or not even a big name, but they've spent a lot of money, send the Board of Trustees a thank you note. And the friends in the library, these are your friends. Not only can you send a note of thanks, but join the friends of the library and volunteer when they do projects that are earning you funds for your programs. It's really important, especially because you'll see the community on another level as a friend. And to be honest, I know in my career, the friends were so supportive, and I wanted to be able to give back to them. Leadership in your community. Make contacts and stay in touch. That means the whole year, not just an initial email. One of your most important contacts will be with the local PTA. In small libraries, you might be near one, two, or one school district, but maybe one school that you would cover, or you're going to work with one principal. In, say, medium suburban school districts, you may have a staff and you might say, okay, different people on the staff will stay in touch and join PTAs in different schools. And in a very large library, that you may not be able to handle a lot of it, but you still have to make contacts and join the PTA. It's not expensive. You'll get their newsletters. You'll know what's going to happen in the schools. And that's important for you to know, especially as a public librarian who has kids coming in for homework help and you are unaware of what's going on. If you can attend one or two meetings, don't make this a habit. You don't have the time. But the first meeting of the year might be a good time to introduce yourself. And the parents who are there would probably appreciate knowing you because they may not use your library. And your library will be open when the school library isn't. Bring book lists and library calendars to principals and teachers and the school librarian. And there's another thing that you can do if your system allows it, is talk to the school librarian about an agency card for her or him, so that he can take out books, interlibrary loan, and only one card will be in the school, so that person, and hopefully it would be your school librarian, would be in charge of who's got the books. But there's no fines for this, and one person, the school librarian, can help back and forth with what they need. Volunteer for reading nights. This is great to do through the PTA. Let them know that if they're going to have a read-in or a special day, in March or whatever, you'll be happy to read. Ask to participate in the open houses with a table and lots of handouts. And this would probably be through the principal. This may be the only time you would go into the school if that's all they want, but it's a way of making yourself available to the community. And even if they don't seem to show a lot of interest, if you make up a book list, or you know that they're doing something and you make a book list to make it easier for you and the staff of the library to help pick out books, drop it off in the mailboxes to specific teachers who it might correspond to. The science fair is coming up. Here are some of our science fair books. And make enough copies so that you can hand it out to the teachers. And if you want to be generous because it's very small, you can make enough for their classroom. This is just a way to keep yourself in contact. I'm talking about public speaking because that's really what all of this is. I mean, you're not going to have a script and you're going to be out in front of a lot of people. Well, maybe you don't feel comfortable public speaking. You really don't even like talking to adults that much. This is a great place, Toastmasters. Toastmasters.org is all over the world. And in the Albany area where I live, there are 23 meetings that I could attend in this small capital district area, and I consider this a small area. They aren't free, but I didn't think when I looked it up the expense was that bad. It was $45 for every 6 months and a new member fee of $20. But what they work on is to improve your public speaking skills, building leadership skills, maximizing your potential. I mean, there's a lot in Toastmasters that would be helpful for you. If you're real, I just think this is a time, as you're thinking about leadership roles, to have the demeanor and feel comfortable talking. It's the one thing you will do the most in your leadership skills. And by the way, one of the things you have to do on the fly are book talks. When you're in the library and people are coming up to you and looking, it could be kids, it could be parents, it could be teachers, it could be staff, adult patrons. You need to know your book talks, not all of them, but some books on the fly to be able to get those books into the hands of our young people. So you have to learn a few short sentences for those on the fly book talks, and I think Toastmasters would be a place if you're uncomfortable about this. Leadership in your profession. Well, obviously NYLA, and of course we always get one free section with that, so of course you would choose YSS, and it's not that expensive to join a second or a third section. You might want to do that. The webinars, if you're part of the section, are free. It's professional development. You want that. And what does YSS offer you? And frankly, what do you offer to YSS? Well, all of these little buttons tell you about it. And get to know your section. Hit these. This is where you're going to find out about all the things you might, what conferences are coming up. Of course, this is the Empowerment and Leadership Academy, which you do know about. You're involved in that. Elections. Would you even want to run for an office? The newsletter, if you don't get it or you forget about it, you can find it here. Minutes from different board meetings. The awards and scholarships. Obviously, this is pretty easy to look through, but don't forget it's there and use it. And where do you start with YSS? That active member form is very important. These are just obviously screenshots. It says get involved in YSS and fill this out. Everything's online. But don't forget to look to see what the jobs are. There's the YSS Executive Board, which, okay, you're not quite ready for that maybe. The non-voting YSS board positions, which means a lot of times you do not have to go to meetings. The YSS committees, a lot of times you don't have to go to board meetings. What takes a lot of time, what doesn't. And when you fill out that active member form, you can do simple things. The two most simple things that take no time, once a year, if you can go, is to be a room monitor at a conference, the spring conference or the annual conference, and to work in the YSS booth. You'll start meeting people from around the state, and it will help you to know your state members. And you'll find out that you all have similar problems, the different sizes of the libraries, your strengths, your weaknesses, and even you'll start making some friends. Professional development is very important to leadership. And one of the ways you can do it through YSS is the spring conference and the NYLA annual conference and the NYLA webinars. Okay, so now you've decided, I'd like to really do this. I'd like to go, but that's a lot of money. Well, is there a budget, a conference budget in the budget of the library? Is there one in your section? If not, write up a proposal and send it off to your department head or even the director and ask about it. As you can see, I picked up the spring conference and the 1A, 1B, 1C, if you are not registered yet for the spring conference. In the first workshops, these are the choices. If you look at these, you would be able to, in your, if you want to call it your ask, to say, if I really would like to attend because working with teens, I need to see how I can help them with other things in our community. So this empowering teens through civic engagement would really help me in my present job. Understanding stereotypes and tropes of children's literature. Perhaps you really want to learn how to develop to be able to evaluate literature better. Celebrating the Coretta Scott King Awards, what a great way to bring up diversity to your director or department head. Even the Drag Queen Story Hour, you should know more about that if you're intrigued, if you're thinking about it, or if you really want to do it but you're a little nervous, this would be the opportunity to hear how it went. And certainly teaching app design, you may want to do a coding class. These are the choices for only the first workshop, but any one of those would be important to your jobs. If you can't get anything else, you might ask, if there's no money and they say we can't afford to send you, you might say, may I go to the conference on work time? Meaning you don't have to take personal time or vacation time. And that may be all you get. You may suggest as you spend time in this library that they have a conference budget, and perhaps they could put just a certain amount of money in it. And if you're a big department, you may not get the choice to go all the time unless it is on your time and on your dollar, if that's important to you. Or they may spread it around and let anybody who wants to go, and most people may not want to go. In my library, very few people took the opportunity to go to NYLA. And they always were surprised that I went every year. And part of that was because of my friendships throughout the state. And I have to be honest and tell you that some of the other librarians who did not attend would say to me they could not believe how marvelous YSS, the youth service librarians, were in sharing. We share our programs, we share our issues, we share our joys, we share the good stuff, we share the bad stuff, but we talk to each other, and it's very important to meet at a conference where you only see them once or twice a year. And so we had a conference budget for the whole library, and we had about 8 librarians through all the different departments, and usually the director and I were the only ones that went. No one else went. but it was not specifically for me or for her. And she was, because we live in the Albany area, if it was in Saratoga Springs, she would practically push them out of their seats to say it's important that you go, because she did believe in this. So I'm just saying that it is important, and there are ways to get some kind of funds to go. And you certainly can say, if I pay for registration and I get a roommate, would you pay for the hotel? Or maybe you need transportation. So there's ways to think about this. And it can get expensive. There is no question about it, and not everybody can afford to do this. But look for the scholarships and apply. You may not get one you can't get them every year. We want to spread them around in YSS. But certainly when you are making the least amount of money and it would be the hardest for you, that's what you're going to write. The Ann Gibson Scholarship, by the way, is for 1 year in library school. And it's before you graduate, usually. That pays, it's $1,000. But the spring conference schedule scholarships, there's 2 of those. And then we have, obviously, you're in the Empowerment, Advocacy, and Leadership Academy, so you know about the Memorial Scholarship. But these are places to look for money. Leadership on the national level. We've got ALA, ALSC, which is the youth children's section of ALA, and YALSA, which is the young adult. And at ala.org/ALSC, ala.org/YALSA is how you get to the main pages for ALSC and YALSA. There are so many things, because I use ALSC the most, but I am a member of both ALSC and YALSA. There are so many things that are free. You don't have to be a member. And no, it isn't cheap to be a member. And frankly, I would never ask my library to pay for my membership. But I would ask them to help me pay for conferences. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First of all is the ALSC blog. This is a great blog written by members. You can subscribe to it so it comes in your email every day, twice a day sometimes. Subscribe to it and start reading it. As you can see, this is just yesterday's blog post by the president of ALSC. And it's how you can be engaged. You can look over the many topics, and there's so many aspects to this blog, from program suggestions to early literacy, leadership, history, book lists. There's so much, and it is categorized. So it's a great place for you to just look for some programming ideas or see what it's all about, catch up on some things that are your favorites to look at and read, and then start reading it every day. I mean, sometimes I just skim over it, and other times I put the blog post in categories off of my email so I'll have it. Plus, you can write for this. At the top, you'll see ALSC bloggers. Mary Voers is the person in charge of this website, and she's always looking for people. You won't get published right away. She'll take your blog post, and it may even be a month, 6 weeks before it goes up. But she's always looking for something unique. And it looks great on your resume, and it looks great for your personnel folder at your library. These are pieces of leadership. There are also this is just ALSC, but YALSA has the same types of things. There are so many free, or you have to pay for them, professional tools, and you just have to click on them to see what's there. I will tell you that the Early Childhood Expertise Beyond Library Land, the very first thing under ALSC Learning, is a webinar that's free tomorrow. The Storytelling with Puppets, that's a class that's more expensive. You don't have to be a member of ALSC. You pay a little bit more money because you're not, but you know what? If it's a one-time only and you're not ready to join and you want to know more about puppets, go for it. Under professional tools, these are things that, like the Baby's Needs Words, those are posters that you can print off your printer in all different sizes and hang in your library, free for you to use. Grants and corporate partnerships, think about where you can get money for programs. This is the place to look. It's amazing. And I honestly can't say and highlight enough how much you get out of knowing what the national experience with librarianship is. So NYLA is statewide, and many states do not have statewide organizations. And I can tell you that some of my friends are a little jealous of how much we do here in New York State. And then, frankly, there's things that you get with your membership. You get subscriptions to a magazine called American Libraries, and it's a hard copy, and honestly, I barely look at it because in my email, I get the newsletter almost, I think it's once or twice a week, and there's lots of great articles which I can skim over or read in depth when I choose to, which I like better than having a hard paper copy. Then for the ALSC, you have Children in Libraries, and those are great articles, and you also get newsletters from ALSC, so these are just part of what you have available. This is really important, and this is just with ALSC, but it's free. Everyday Advocacy. This is where you can learn the elevator speech, the who, what, where about advocating for yourself, your library, your patrons, and as I have to remind you, it's all free. Click on any of these under the Everyday Advocacy, and there's lots of ideas to help you and to remind you of how to go about advocating for all of us. And it's very important to be able to do that, including for yourself, advocating for yourself. ALSC committees. All right. Now, and there's YALSA committees too. Are you thinking about getting involved? Okay, well, that's great, but it won't be Newberry or Caldecott on the first round. I'm really smiling when I say this, because wouldn't that be great? To be honest, no, you have no idea how much reading you have to do. So, first of all, be realistic and think about your time. And as you heard with Laura, I mean, she goes in at work, she stays late, she's checking in, she's a manager, she can do all of this, but to add being on a committee that if she was evaluating books on a committee, I can't even imagine her, she would never sleep. But there are a lot of committees that they need volunteers for that really are not going to strain you. First of all, at the bottom of this in the teal colored, you see it says PG1, PG2, those are priority groups. And they group different committees by this: child advocacy, evaluation of media, professional awards and scholarships, organizational support, awards, partnerships, professional development. And they have committees with all of this. And a lot of them will have a V next to them, which means they're a virtual committee. You don't have to go to any conference, midwinter or annual. And frankly, with the budget for those, you may not have it, but you can be involved. I was on a virtual committee for 2 years, which was part of the advisory committee for children in libraries. I didn't have to write an article for the magazine, but we looked over who had sent in articles, what needed to be marketed to the group to let people know that we were looking for articles, or who would write something about, I'm trying to think of who would write something about the research that's being done. And we had a researcher on my committee. And so the researcher was like, oh, she knew of research that would be important to a youth services librarian. So she was just going to mention that. And that became a regular column. Those are the kinds of things. But I have to say that I had a fabulous chair. We had conference telephone calls once a month. You couldn't make all of them. Our chair had an itinerary, unbelievable, and she stuck to 1 hour. So you sat at your desk and because it was usually during work time, and again, you would have to check with your department head or your director to do this on work time or to make up the hour if they really aren't happy with that. But usually this actually looks good for your library that you serve on these things. You're a volunteer. So I would say that it really helps in the future that you served on necessary committees, but on exciting committees, your future for ALSC or YALSA. And then eventually you might get to serve on one of the committees that you really would like to go. And there's a lot of benefits of volunteering. This is from the ALSC website. Making valuable contacts, and that's true. Building new friendships. I have some very, very close friends from around the country. And they're fun to meet up at these conferences. The satisfaction of knowing that you make a difference. And many times you will really feel that. You're talking about national policies. You will refine and develop your leadership skills. You know, you'll obtain professional recognition. Some people on committees have been co-authors on a book that EALA has published. And you'll gain knowledge, this is really important, of the issues affecting our profession. 26 process committees, 15 book and professional award committees, 3 discussion groups, task forces. There's a lot of ways to get involved. And one of the first beginning things is you're going to fill out a volunteer form. And on this page, there is a place where you go to the form. But before you get there, they have a lot of FAQs that you can go down and the links of what the committees do. They're very thorough, and I think that it's important because putting down that you want to serve on a committee and not knowing the time management issue of each or where you have to meet, how often you have to meet, is not helpful to you. So they are very thorough about this. Now, going to the conference. If you want to try and go to a conference, again, you would negotiate with your director or department head, hoping that you could at least get work time. For our area, you might want to look at Boston or Philadelphia. Again, you can negotiate. That's not a bad thing to do. There are, under awards, grants, and scholarships on the ALSC page, and I'm not really sure what it is on the YALSA page, what it's called, but I'm sure it's similar. There are a couple of scholarships. There's one for first-time attendees to a conference and another one for a great SRP program. And I'm not talking like 6 weeks of great programming. It could be one program that you did for the last summer reading program. You write it up. It goes to a committee. And, you know, not a lot of people apply for these things. You can also start your own private fund for the conference. If everyone says, no, you're not going to be able to go, we can't afford this, it's not fair, you know, they don't have a conference budget, we'd love to send you, but no. Well, start saving money if it's really important to you and you want to do this. And when the list of hotels come out, if this place is farther than you really want to go, you look for cheaper hotels. You know how to do that. If you have relatives in that city, you might stay there. I'm not kidding you when I say cheap food and bring ramen noodles. I'm really not kidding. I have to tell you that, and also you might want to stay at a pharmacy, near a pharmacy like Walgreens. They have food, they have salads. It's cheap. When I was serving on one committee, I think it was Notables. My roommate and I the conference was in Las Vegas, and my roommate and I were looking for really cheap, and most of the hotels weren't that expensive, but we were looking for even cheaper because we've always been told Las Vegas is cheap. So we ended up in, quite frankly, a really cheap hotel, Harrah's. It was horrible. I mean, it was fine, but when you look at some of the fancy hotels in Las Vegas, it was down there. There wasn't even Wi-Fi in our rooms or in the lobby. But a half block down the street was a huge McDonald's, and I mean huge. They had cheap breakfast and free Wi-Fi. So every morning we went down there, checked our mail, checked in with our families, and had our cheap little, you know, Egg McMuffin. And we ate there every day. We picked up salads at Walgreens, and we picked up wine on the you know, from a store on the street. We ate at receptions anytime we could. And frankly, We had a blast. I mean, complaining about everything, you know, the food, and wherever the things, but we really did have a blast. And part of that is keeping your head above water. There are also some personal fellowships that you can get, but they really, and they're great for your getting ahead because it's important, but I'm not sure that everybody would want to do this, but I had the Bechtel Fellowship, and that is 4 weeks doing historical children's literature research at the University of Florida in Gainesville, Florida. They've made it easier. You don't have to go for 4 weeks at one time. It's at this point, it's $4,000 for your month, and they're going to raise it, but you can go for 2 weeks at a time. So you could, and the way your budgets are, you could take 2 weeks vacation. You could even do it in less than 4. They're trying to keep the travel costs down and more people to apply for this. That's just an opportunity that you might like. And the William C. Morris Seminar, which is held every 2 years, it's completely free, travel, hotel, everything, and it's usually done before midwinter. And William C. Morris was a publisher, and he loved children's literature, and he donated a big fund upon his death for something in ALSC, and they've started this seminar. Again, it was great. It was a teaching, and I did this too, and they were teaching you how to evaluate literature as they do on the major committees. So when they're looking at the Caldecott and the Newbery, what are they talking about? How do they talk about the books? How do you read differently than just, oh, I love this book, oh, the story is great? What are you looking for? What are the points of all the art in the Caldecott? What do you need to know? And it's not that you need to be someone who does know a lot about art, but you need to pay attention and learn a little bit about it. There's no question about that. There are important things about it. So there's a lot of money floating around. Whether you are able to take advantage of some of it, a little bit of it, it's up to you. But there are money, and there's also grant funds for programming, so that you need to go through this and take a look at it so that you can get an idea of what is out there, because there is a lot. Now, outside of the library world, in your community, first of all, there probably are some community foundation boards. You want to join those if you live in that community. If you work in a different one and you want to be on another one, that's great. This is all for your education and for your leadership skills. Working on a board, there's nothing like it. It's really helpful. You bring a library purpose to their work, makes them remember that the library can help them or do things for them, but it's just another way of serving your community. You may have a tie-in with nursery schools or preschool child care boards. Go for it. They probably would love the help, and it may be places that you've done professional training for their workers, or you may have gone there and done story times on site, and they would like your opinion. Yes, you don't have a lot of time. That little clock is there for a reason. And so you have to look at what are the requirements, how often do they meet, the expectations, but it would be probably a really great resume builder for you to serve on a board if you could. There's so many challenges and opportunities that we have outside of the library world. It's amazing. And I think that that's our skills only help any place that we go for it. Even like when I talk about the park and rec programs, in the summer reading program, you probably have no extra time, but you're going to have to build it in because your local communities would love it if you're part of that. And again, it just puts you and your program into the whole mind of the community, and that your director can see that you're doing these things. A Mother Goose on the Loose is an early literacy program that I happen to love. and I subscribed to their website and to their newsletter. And she had this in her one of her monthly programs, leadership qualities. This is from Australia, the Early Literacy Council of Australia. What does leadership look like in youth services? Leadership is about identity, and it starts with you. So you've got to feel comfortable in your own skin and that you can do the job and you can keep moving forward and bring your department with you, bring the people who work for you or that you work under to your points. Leadership is about influence, both directly and indirectly, and responsibility, and is therefore potentially open to everyone. These are things that, if you notice, this goes right along with what Laura was saying. Influence and responsibility. Leadership demonstrates respect as an enactment of ethical commitments. I think that's really important. You want people to respect your opinions, but more than that is to respect what you have to say and respect you as a person, that they can count on you because you take that mantle of responsibility and you are an influence in the library. There is not just one way to enact in leadership. It is complex, dynamic, and varies from situation to situation. So as Laura said, you have to be flexible. And that shows a great act of leadership when you're able to be flexible. Someone is sick, someone has to take over a program, someone has to, on the fly, look at another person's notes, but the notes are there and ready because that is what you do. You're sick and someone has to take over. You don't come in at work expecting at 8:30 you're going to put on a story time at 9:30. It's done in a pile, all set, everything is ready. That's leadership. It's about qualities and values rather than the position. So you may be the last person hired, or maybe it's your first job in a place. That doesn't matter, because if you have all of these things and work hard, everyone will see that you are a leader. Leadership is purpose. What do you want out of this? And leadership capabilities can be professionally developed. And I think that's really important to think about with all of the opportunities that you have for the professional development. Honestly, I have never, well, I can't say never. That was definitely wrong. So many of us, me included, I love my job. You never want to talk about, maybe you want to be the department head for youth services, but that's as far as you're going to go. You love the story times. You love the kids. You love working with them. You like helping parents of new babies and setting them up with the early literacy program. You love going to school visits and even summer reading program as you're planning it. You love it. Maybe as you're doing it, you're not loving it so much, but you get so involved, so excited. That's not enough. You have the education, the drive, and the ambition, and the knowledge to move up the ladder into those jobs that could be the assistant director and mentor other youth services librarians, and maybe the director, sitting on boards, talking to and planning the future library. And when you're sitting on those boards and you're talking about the future library, excuse me, who will you care about the most? Yes, your patrons of today, the kids who grow up, the teens who are growing, who become taxpayers. Our future is our children, but you know what? Sitting there on the floor or playing with the kids, it's not playing, but it's important work, doesn't always look important to those who are holding the directorships right now. Sometimes they don't see us as an important part. You know it's important, so come on, drag us all along with you and move up the ladder. You will have the contacts in the community to build the collaborations and keep them moving forward. You do a couple of programs or you collaborate on something with someone from the school. If you keep going up that ladder, it will get larger and it will become so important that the governor will not be cutting our monies for libraries because they're such a part of each community. Don't keep saying how much you love your job, no matter how much you love it. You love librarianship. Doesn't mean it only has to be with kids. And so many of you will go on to other jobs that may not work with kids, but you can go even further. And I hope you do, because there is more. And I honestly didn't know that until the end of my career, before I retired. I honestly kept thinking, I love my job so much, and I was put in the role because I had already given the date of when I was going to retire, and as the interim assistant director. And I was doing that for about 6 months, and I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed it. Still was doing my youth services jobs, but I just felt, wow, I could have done this if I'd only pictured myself there, and I never did. So I hope that you will do that, because more youth librarians need to step up and take the skills and the stories with them. So please, this leadership ladder isn't just to be to your department head. Keep on going. Thank you. And if there's any questions, I know Laura and I are here to answer them.
We'll give everyone a couple of minutes to get their last minute questions in. I want to thank both Joyce and Laura for taking the time to present with us today. I hope everyone was as intrigued and thankful as I was. And again, if you have any questions at all, please let us know now. And Joyce and Laura, if there's any last minute things that you want to get in or anything else you want to say, feel free.
Well, Joyce, I was actually laughing when you were talking about doing the Newbery and the book awards, because I did do BFYA for YALSA.
Yeah, I know.
And I was doing another committee and working a job. And yes, I never wanted to read another book for 6 months after I did that committee.
I know the feeling.
So overreading. I was just so overreading. I never wanted to look at a book again.
Well,
I did not sleep.
With notables, the books were so, because we have to get all of these books. I had books everywhere in the house, everywhere. We could make chairs out of the books. I mean, it was like you couldn't turn around and think, how can I even look at all of these? It was awful.
For those of you who don't know, they will deliver you like 2,000 books.
Yes.
Every publisher there is.
Yes. And I honestly read, because you'd have to keep a log. I mean, for notables in a year, I read about 1,000. I really did read about 1,000. You don't watch TV. You sit down and you say, okay, I got to read this book today. It's wild. But there's a lot of committees that you don't have to spend that kind of time with.
Yeah. And I will say, for all of you who are still on the line, getting involved in the committees and the executive boards in different library positions, that really helped me with my leadership skills. And I'm sure Joyce could tell you the same thing. I learned so much about being part of a team. I learned a lot about teamwork from being on those committees. I learned a lot about library advocacy and where I wanted to go in my career from seeing what other people are doing by meeting people across the state. So it really broadens your horizons to get involved.
Absolutely. I really felt that it was one of the most important things I did in my career.
I have to agree with you. It was very, very eye-opening for me to get out of the one library I worked in and see what everybody else is doing. And really, it really helps you get new ideas too, because you see what other people are doing and you have these great conversations. It really helps you grow. It's almost like your executive board is your mentor.
Yes.
And I have to say, Joyce has mentored me a lot. She was above me as a president on the executive board for years. And, you know, I took a lot of what she had to say that helped me. So those things are very important.
If we don't have any questions, we can conclude for the afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. And again, thank you to Joyce and Laura.
Thanks.
Thank you.